Have you ever wondered how a company can promise you something financially like decades into the future? A future that's completely unpredictable? I mean, our whole financial system is kind of built on these long-term guarantees. So let's get into how they actually manage to pull that off.
Seriously, think about it. A pension scheme takes your money today and says, don't worry, in 40 years, we'll give you a steady income. How is that even possible? They have no idea what the stock market will do, what inflation will look like, or even how long we're all going to live. It's a huge, complicated puzzle. Well, the person whose job it is to solve that puzzle is the actuary. You can think of them as the architects of financial security. Their entire job is to peer into that uncertain future, measure all the potential risks, and then build a mathematical framework to handle them. They're the ones who turn a vague promise into a solid, calculated plan. So how do they do it? It's definitely not guesswork. Actuaries rely on this really powerful, systematic framework that's designed to bring some order to the chaos of the future, and it's called the actuarial control cycle. Now notice, this isn't a straight line. It's a loop, and that's key. Managing future risk isn't a one-and-done kind of thing. It's a living, breathing process. You define the problem, you build a solution, you watch what actually happens in the real world, and then you feed that new information right back into the start to keep refining your approach. Let's break it down. First, you specify the problem. What exactly is the financial promise we're trying to keep? Second, you develop a solution, and that usually means building a model. Third, and this is so important, you monitor the experience. Are people living longer than you thought? Are the markets going haywire? And finally, you respond to that experience, updating your model to make sure it stays sharp and accurate. Okay. So within that cycle, the main tool actuaries use to develop a solution is the financial model. This is where they basically build a mathematical simulation of the future to test out all their assumptions. Let's look at the two main types they work with. And this is just a brilliant way to think about it. On one side, you've got a deterministic model. That's your single, perfect flight plan. It uses one set of your best guess assumptions to map out a single path. But on the other side, you have a stochastic model. This is like running thousands and thousands of flight simulations to see every possible outcome, from arriving early to getting hit by a massive storm and being seriously delayed. So let's zoom in on that deterministic model. It projects one single cash flow scenario, your most likely path. They're pretty fast and cheap to run, which makes them great for asking specific what-if questions. You know, like, what happens to our plan if interest rates go up by 1%? It gives you one clear, straightforward answer based on that one change. But we all know the real world isn't a single fixed path. And that's where stochastic models are absolute game changers. Instead of one answer, they give you a whole distribution of thousands of possible answers by running all those simulations. This is incredibly powerful because it can model not just gradual changes, but also those sudden, out-of-nowhere market jumps. It lets actuaries see the chances of those really extreme events, what we call tail risk, and figure out exactly how much money a company needs to have on hand to survive the financial version of a once-in-a-100-year storm. Now, here's the thing. It's not a competition. Actuaries don't just pick one and ignore the other. They often use a deterministic model for a quick check, and then bring in a powerful stochastic model to understand the full universe of risk around that scenario. They really work together to build a complete, robust picture of the future. Okay, that's the theory, but where does this stuff actually show up in our lives? Let's connect these models back to the financial products that many of us actually use. This quote from the source material really just nails it. These models have two main jobs. The first is pricing, figuring out how much you should pay for a product. The second is valuing liabilities, which is a fancy way of saying how much money do we need to put aside today to make good on our promises tomorrow. And this table shows it perfectly. Take term life insurance. The big risk is mortality, someone dying earlier than expected. The model helps price the premium to cover that risk. But then you flip it for a pension scheme. There, the main risk is longevity, people living longer than expected. The model has to project how much money you'll need to keep paying that pension, no matter how long someone lives. And you can see the same logic for annuities, and even your car and home insurance, where models are constantly predicting how often and how severe future claims will be. So, why does all of this complicated modeling matter to you and me? Well, it all comes down to stability and trust in our financial system. So here's the big takeaway.
This whole process is what makes it possible for financial promises to be kept, not just for years, but for decades. It's what ensures the premium you pay for insurance is actually a fair price for the risk involved. And ultimately, by taking something as wild as uncertainty and turning it into measurable, manageable risk, it provides the very foundation of stability for our entire financial system. It's the engine that makes long-term security work.
And that leads us to one last really important question. The world keeps changing. We're facing huge new risks like climate change and the impact of AI that we've never dealt with before. So the challenge for actuaries, and really for all of us, is how do these models have to evolve to handle these new uncertainties and to keep providing us with financial security in a future that seems to be getting more unpredictable every day?